In today's episode, we will talk all about the Celestia narrative, and I'll give you guys my perspective on why I'm not so bullish on the leftover upside for Celestia from its current market cap, and I'll give you guys my perspective picks in the Celestia ecosystem, taking into account what Celestia actually is, what is the modular narrative, and what are the other players that is not only building on Celestia, including layer 2s like Manta, like Fuel, like Dymension, etc. Many players launching, as well as other technology solutions that is very similar to Celestia and came up around the same time. EigenLayer is a very strong one, and in order to understand this, you have to fully understand what Modular is and why Celestia is not the only player in this narrative. Okay, so that's it on the agenda today. Welcome back to the channel, guys. If you're new here, my name is Dennis. I'm a crypto angel investor for the past 5 years, and I have invested in over 100 crypto companies. On this channel, I share my views on market trends and investing strategy to build wealth in crypto. I see some interesting stuff already. Why are you fighting my TIA bags? I'm really not. So this is a really good way to kick off here. So let me explain my stance on Celestia right now. So Celestia, if you didn't know what it is, it's this inventor of the modular blockchain paradigm. So what does that mean? It means that Celestia serves all other blockchains, whether that's a layer 1 or layer 2, by being the data availability layer and the consensus layer. So what this means right here with this graphic on the right is that when you build a blockchain, whether layer 1 or layer 2, especially for layer 2 rollups, what you need to do is that you need a layer 1 to commit to, usually Ethereum, right, where you have syncing. But then you also need to make available the layer 2 rollup transaction data, and in order to facilitate fraud checking, right? So how a rollup works is that, okay, you batch many transactions together, and then you have some smaller community figure out that, okay, this batch transaction is most likely safe, and then they commit it. But at a later time, if someone tries to dispute this, you have to go back and retrieve that data and try to process them again to see if there was anything fraudulent going on. Now, typical layer 2s like Arbitrum, Optimism, that do optimistic rollup with full on-chain data availability, they do this by just directly storing the information on Ethereum mainnet, right? And similar, there are other ZK EVMs coming up doing this as well. This is obviously the most decentralized way to do it, but it's very expensive, right? Storing large amounts of data on Ethereum layer 1 is expensive. So what Celestia came up with the idea is you can have a you can separate the execution layer, that is the smart contracts, the coding language, etc., and how you interact with the wallets, and the data availability layer, which is where you store the data for backup. You can separate these two and store the data on a cheaper environment, but it's still decentralized while having your main execution layer still being settled on Ethereum. So that is what Celestia is, and that is why they call themselves modular blockchain network, is because when you build a layer 2 using Celestia, you are not building layer 2 for Celestia. Instead, you are building a layer 2 for things like, you can build for Ethereum layer 2, you can build a Solana layer 2, you can build a Cosmos app chain, and those still serve those separate ecosystems. But then the data availability is handled by Celestia. So you can pick and choose different parts of your rollup blockchain using Celestia. So this is what Celestia does. Now, this is overall the narrative that's very popular right now, and you see a lot of layer 2 rollup blockchains spawning up, going into this paradigm. Now, we have covered Celestia on the channel 2 months ago. So when it first launched, right, in our Cosmos top altcoin picks, this was my number 1 altcoin pick in Cosmos ecosystem, and we covered it right around $6. I have been accumulating between like 3 to 6. It was good, right? But even at this valuation, I thought it was still worth covering. but it was also already getting quite high. Now at today's valuation, you guys know the story, right? Celestia is pretty much nonstop run now. It has reached as high as $20, I believe. $19. So that is $19 billion valuation. That is honestly very, very high already for a new project like this. The idea, just like we described in the first video, the idea is absolutely very, very groundbreaking, very new. However, at 17 to 19 billion dollars, like what is the potential upside here, right? We got to consider that, and that's why in by the end of the year, you know, I've even though I have it in my portfolio since I've had it for so long, I still stake Celestia for airdrops. But if you are just starting to get into this ecosystem and you're still trying to play the same game of buying Celestia and going for those airdrops, I don't know if that's the best risk to return anymore, given how much Celestia has gone up. So this is why, you know, I have been covering some of these Celestia adjacent ecosystems in two ways. So number one is actual rollups and established projects launching using Celestia and is able to be in that same narrative. Number two is Celestia alternatives. For example, EigenLayer and even Near Protocol does have a data availability layer that serves Modular as well. So we'll cover those today. Okay, so the first project that is very interesting that you probably already see from the thumbnail is Manta Network. So Manta Network, we have already covered 3-4 weeks ago through the farming. The token has just gone live today. If you had farmed when I first published that video, when it was around $100 million in TVL, that farm turned out really well. I did receive about 100% returns on all my deposited farms over the past month. Obviously, your experience will vary. The more you have deposited, the higher chance you would have gotten a better airdrop because there's a tier structure. And the earlier you went in, the better rewards you would have gotten. I know a lot of people really started to push this like in the past 2 weeks or so when the farm already has gone on for 3 weeks before. The yield got super diluted towards the end. So if you entered much later, the rewards probably would have been bad. This is because, again, the TVL went up 9x and you missed out on potentially majority of the farming time initially. So your mileage definitely would vary. Now, why am I bullish on Manta? Couple reasons. Number one is that it is the first actual execution layer that launched using Celestia. So you guys can go ahead and try, you know, Celestia, the blockchain itself. It's very slow. In order to transact on there, in order to send the Celestia tokens itself, it's not a blockchain meant for actual transactions. It's really this settlement, this data availability layer that only shines when you have actual layer 2s built on top. And this is what Manta does. So Manta is technically a ZK EVM layer 2 for Ethereum. It uses ETH as the gas fee. But by using Celestia for data availability, it has a very strong gas fee savings versus other Ethereum layer 2s. So you can find out about this experience today on Manta by bridging to Manta specific. What you'll find is that transactions on here only cost 1 cent, sometimes sub 1 cent, which is already, I would say, 5x cheaper than Arbitrum, probably 10x cheaper than Optimism even, and much, much cheaper than other ZK EVMs, ZK Sync and Linea, Polygon ZK EVM, because those actually all are not modular. They have a much more expensive gas fee in order to commit their data. So this is number one thing that I'm bullish on. Number two is that their adoption in this past month has been crazy, right? So here we have L2 beat the scaling rank, the TVL rank for all layer 2 projects. And you see Manta is already the number 3 ranked layer 2 project today. Just behind Arbitrum and Optimism. Obviously, those two are giants in the industry. They are still quite far away. But you see down this list, so the closest competitor we have is Metis. However, Metis is a quite a legacy project. It is not even an optimistic rollup. It's a optimistic sidechain. So I really wouldn't put Metis in the same category as the latest, modular layer 2 rollups. So I think the closest competitors to Manta right now would be ZK Sync. ZK Sync technology would still be quite superior because they have been doing ZK rollups for much longer. And then we have Mantle. So Mantle is actually a modular-based layer 2 rollup. It uses, I believe, EigenLayer as data availability, but it still serves the Ethereum ecosystem as a rollup. So Mantle only has $300 million in TVL, whereas Manta has $880 million. Right, so just keep those numbers in mind. And of course, we have Linea is also a really strong comparison here. Another leading ZK EVM. We have Immutable has its own ZK EVM. Polygon has its own ZK EVM. But you see, none of these ZK rollups have similar levels of traction as Manta. I would say this is because the biggest thing for me personally is the gas fee difference. So usually when you run a ZK EVM, the data cost is much higher to commit your, let's say, to commit to the data availability layer is much higher than an optimistic rollup. So this is why modular is such a big deal for a ZK EVM. Okay, so comparing Manta to those similar types of projects. So Manta today is trading at, do I have the chart? Here. So Manta is right around $2.10 right now, which gives it a fully diluted valuation of 2.1 billion. Couple ways to look at this. This is the first execution layer for Celestia. Celestia is at 17 billion. Obviously, Manta shouldn't be reaching those high levels right away, right? This is still just one ecosystem versus a full layer. However, when you compare Manta to similar networks that we have described, so Mantle is at 4 billion fully diluted valuation. We have Astar is another different example. We have, for example, Metis. So Metis, even as a legacy solution, is already at 1 billion as well. And we have Linea, we have ZK Sync, which will both be in the $4 to $8 billion range based on their last fundraising round. Of course, we have Polygon, but Polygon really is not dictated by its own ZK EVM. That is just a very small part of Polygon. And Manta does use Polygon's technology, Polygon's CDK. So I would say Polygon is definitely still higher tier. So this is how I'm looking at Manta right now. I think anything below a $2 billion valuation would be a buy for me. So that is anything lower than $2. I'm going to load up more of my bags. Now, full disclosure, I have not sold any of my airdrop tokens from Manta from the new paradigm campaign. Even going into this campaign, when I was doing the calculations in our video that I first made, I put Manta's valuation at least towards $3 to $4 billion, not $2 billion. So this is why, I think really this is what we're seeing right now is the initial large airdrop distributed to all the community members through their 3 years of adoption, and those typical airdrop taking profit type of price pattern we see. Another good example here is what happened with Zai. So Zai is the layer 3 launched by Arbitrum for gaming, and you see this one launched at $7.20 and dropped as much as 30% all the way down to 45 cents. So again, they had a very large airdrop as well. But then the subsequent bounce brought it to almost a 3x, right? 2.5x return in the past week following. So I would say combining those factors, I'm not selling my Manta right now. In fact, anything below $2, I'm going to buy more. If you want to follow my Manta trades, make sure to join our Discord with the link in my bio, or go to discord.gg/virtualbacon. I'm going to be covering my Manta trade entries and exits in the next week or 2 weeks, playing out this airdrop kind of a post-listing dump and then the subsequent run-up kind of scenario. Okay, so that's for Manta. And then just the last couple of things to consider really for this network. They not only have this Manta Pacific network, where it serves the Ethereum layer, but they also have their old parachain project from the Polkadot craze back in 2021 called Manta Atlantic. So this is another EVM environment that's fully live serving Polkadot. And Polkadot does have a lot of hype coming up this year as well with Polkadot 2.0. And when you consider the leading projects in Polkadot, so Astar right now is the number one parachain in the Polkadot ecosystem serving a EVM environment. And they are valued at $1.4 billion as well. So I definitely wouldn't discount this either. I think they also are able to catch on to that wave if Polkadot makes a major comeback. So that's on Manta. Let me see if I missed anything for this. Not really. Yeah. So overall, I think betting on new launches using Celestia's technology is going to be much stronger trade setups versus continuing to ride the kind of all-time highs of Celestia. It's getting kind of crazy for the fully diluted valuation. Okay, so that's on Manta. Now, I want to give you guys a couple more perspective launches coming up using Celestia. So another one that's very interesting that will be launching even next week is called Altlayer. So this one is also being launched on Binance Launch Pool. Very similar to Manta, similar to Zai. And this is already starting to farm on Launch Pool, I believe. So the reason why I cover this is if you have BNB, if you have FDUSD, if you use Binance, definitely recommend farming this one. Again, this is a platform to launch native and restake the rollups using both optimistic and ZK rollup stacks. So here on their website, you can see that this is basically a toolset, a platform for you to launch using different technologies in layer 2. So for example, you can launch a ZK EVM by using Polygon's execution layer and either Celestia or EigenLayer as a data availability layer. And that's what you can do. Or you can use, for example, OP stack and choose another data availability layer. Down here, you see this is a very cool ecosystem chart to follow as well. So right now the rollup stacks are, ZK Sync, Polygon for ZK, Arbitrum and OP for the execution for optimistic rollup. And then here, this is actually a lot of alpha. So the data availability providers in the crypto space right now, Celestia is not the only one, right? You see, we have not only Celestia, but EigenLayer, Avail, and actually Near Protocol are all data availability providers. And they really Celestia does not have such a big advantage over the other ones, especially versus EigenLayer. So let me get into what this looks like. So EigenLayer, we have covered before. So a lot of people still think EigenLayer is just this Ethereum related, liquid staking project that allows you to restake your ETH. What does that actually mean, right? So when you stake your Ethereum, typically you help secure the native Ethereum proof of stake consensus, right? You help Ethereum produce blocks. Now, what EigenLayer does is that you stake your Ethereum, your ETH, not only for Ethereum, but also you can use that same staking power to run another network or another use case, such as for a data availability layer or DA. So this is what EigenLayer proposes as one of its use cases called EigenDA. In fact, this is already being worked on. I believe you can, certain chains are already using this, for example, Mantle. So EigenDA, I believe there's an intro somewhere. Anyways, we'll use this one. So what EigenDA is effectively very similar solution to Celestia, where instead of staking your TIA token and contribute to this data layer, you stake your Ethereum and you earn Ethereum native staking, plus it also contributes to a data layer. That is essentially what EigenDA is. Now, EigenLayer, the advantage that it has over Celestia is that not only is it able to serve data availability, but it's also able to be used for other types of, let's say, layer 2 infra protocols that require staking power. So, for example, you can build a bridge, right? If you have a separate bridge network where you need to run nodes on 2 chains, and you need to have certain amount of staking power in order to make sure that the node, that the bridge functions normally, that no two-party collude with each other, then you can use EigenLayer, right? So EigenLayer not only has data availability as one use case, but many more. Decentralized sequencers for layer 2s, bridges, oracles. Let's see which ones are good to understand. Yeah, I would say those are the strongest ones that already have some use cases in the market today. So EigenLayer, here's my prediction on EigenLayer, right? I really believe EigenLayer will be just as big as Celestia. Not directly after launch, because, when you search the 2 terms on YouTube, on Twitter, most people, are treating them very differently. They treat Celestia as this like revolutionary layer 1 that helps, all infra. But most people still look at EigenLayer as only a staking project. It really is 100 times bigger than that. So I think if you are bullish on the modular narrative, on the data availability narrative, EigenLayer, definitely do not miss this one. I personally, right, if EigenLayer launches at anything like, let's say below $5 billion, I would buy. I have no idea when it's going to list, what prices it's going to be. I don't think anybody knows. There's no public sale. There's no farming. There is one way that you can get your hands on EigenLayer, which is through airdrop. So just by, staking your Ethereum through EigenLayer, your staking power will go to, EigenDA and all other use cases that borrows the staking power. And when you get these restaked points, you will most likely get Eigen token airdrop. That is the number one way to get in on this. And when it comes to actually staking, Celestia staking, you got to consider you're buying into a coin that's $17 billion in order to stake, right? So you have that exposure. Versus when you stake on EigenLayer, you actually get the same amount of airdrops, right? Every single new layer 2, new infra that's coming up, for example, for Altlayer, for a couple more that we'll talk about, like Fuel, what's another one? Dymension is another one. Saga is another one. These are some of the popular airdrops people talk about. And all of these give airdrop tokens to not only Celestia, but also EigenLayer. But when you stake on EigenLayer, your price exposure is in Ethereum, right? Because you don't have to stake their native token. It's not live yet. And you get EigenLayer token airdrop, the native one. So I think if you're looking for the modular narrative, the Celestia narrative airdrop, I wouldn't look at staking Celestia. I would look at staking Ethereum on EigenLayer. I think that's a much bigger alpha for airdrop hunting right now. Okay, so that's for EigenLayer. Do not sleep on this one. This is one of my, honestly, like one of the biggest narratives, one of the biggest projects to launch this year. Would not be surprised if it catches on to the same level of hype as Celestia. Okay, that's Celestia. And then just a couple more. Right, so one sleeper pick that I found to be very interesting is actually Near Protocol. So Near Protocol, a lot of people still think, this is just another alternative layer 1. It doesn't have any adoption, etc. That is somewhat true, right? It launched around the same wave as Avalanche, as Harmony, as Phantom, etc. But what's really cool about Near is that they really got on this modular wave very early. And when you look at their platform today, they do have their own data availability layer called the Near DA. And this technically can serve in the modular ecosystem as well. So when you build a layer 2 for Ethereum, you could store your data using Near DA. This is the number 3 solution behind Celestia, behind EigenLayer. So depending on how this goes, right, if they really push this heavily, I could see this actually being somewhat interesting, right? So you see here, there is comparison as well. Data availability comparison. This is cool, right? So you have Ethereum. If you store your data on Ethereum, that costs per block, that is $140. Even with proto-dank sharding, that will still cost $7, right? Because just the throughput, the cost is very high. This is interesting. So actually, Celestia for storing data per block is actually much more expensive than Near. So I didn't realize this. Again, you're not going to see this kind of comparison very clearly right now because Celestia is cheap enough for DA because we're comparing with traditional Ethereum layer 2. But I wouldn't be surprised if Near also catches on when people realize that Near also has DA layer. Okay, so that's Near. And then let's see. Last but not least, I want to give you guys a few execution layers, a few actual projects that's built using this modular infrastructure that will be stronger than like typical layer 2s because it will be much cheaper, and they are launching this year in this narrative. So 3 most interesting one. Where do I have it? Number 1 most interesting to me is actually Fuel. So Fuel is claims to be the world's fastest modular execution layer. Whatever that means. Their website also doesn't say much, right? It's just a lot of modular talk, etc., right? But the most important thing you need to know is that Fuel is the same team as Celestia. So Celestia is made by Fuel is made by the same team as Celestia. This is the most important thing. So this is kind of like an open secret, open knowledge in the VC circles and insiders. But in retail, I'm not sure if a lot of people know this. So when Celestia first created their narrative of modular, right? When they first started to present this stuff, people didn't know how to build on it. So they really have to prove this works by themselves, which is why they have built not only the DA layer underneath, but also their own execution layer as a layer 2 in order to show that this works. So that's why if you're bullish on Celestia, Fuel is very bullish, right? Because it's the same team, right? It's their own execution layer. So this is number 1 pick that's coming up. Again, I don't know when this is going to come. I don't even know. There will probably be an airdrop, right? If you can bridge already. And for sure, they will drop to Celestia stakers. And just for, comparison's sake, for this, if it launches anywhere in the $1 to $2 billion fully diluted valuation, I would call that very cheap and I would buy. That's kind of mental math that I have right now comparing to other projects. Another one that's very interesting. 2 more that's very interesting. First one is Dymension. So this one is a roll-up. I believe it's a roll-up builder platform. Also for very similar to Altlayer. So here you see they call themselves home to the rollups. Dymension is a home for easily deployable and lightning fast app chains called rollups. You can think of it as very similar to Altlayer, where you can pick and choose, which rollup execution stack you choose, which data availability stack you choose, and that gives you essentially creating a rollup as a service. These guys, I believe they just announced their airdrop, and the DIM token should be launching quite soon. Let's see if there's not much info on the token yet. Yeah, not much info on the token yet. But again, for mental math, anything under 1 billion, let's say, depending on how much these guys have raised and what the valuations were in the private rounds, I have to do more research on this one. So, but yeah, this is definitely one of the leading ecosystem projects in the modular narrative. Okay, third one is called Saga. So Saga is, again, another... Wow, it's a pretty cool website. Modular, integrating the modular stack in order to solve the monolithic blockchain paradigm. Airdrop is already there. Yeah, I believe this airdrop has been distributed even. And Saga is a Web3 scalability protocol for the automated deployment of dedicated block space. So yeah, again, very similar in the not only Celestia, but modular ecosystem overall. And this one, not much more to say. Again, I'm going to do more research on valuations that they had in the previous rounds, as well as what the token launches plan might be. Yeah, so that's Saga. Let's see. Was there anything I missed in terms of ecosystem project? We covered Altlayer, we covered EigenLayer, Manta. Yeah, that's it. So out of all of these, I would say Manta, most obvious one right now, because we know what the prices were, people were prospecting on. And get this, right? So on the launch day today, they actually were under DDoS attack, which caused a lot of the initial dump. So this morning, right at their TGE token listing, network ran into trouble because they had a heavy DDoS attack with 135 million requests on the RPC nodes. Very typical of popular chain launches. But I have talked to Kenny, the founder, directly. All of these have been resolved. They have scaled up their RPC nodes. Just very typical launch shenanigans. And another thing to consider is that we have covered the new paradigm campaign when it was farming, right? So even just last week, 6 days ago, when we did the last live stream. So you see here, the Manta, what's this called? First modular L2 NFT, which is the highest tier NFTs. These were trading at $1,000, and I believe up to like 40. Yeah, they minted a total of around 47K of these NFTs. So when you consider that, right, you take 47,000 of these NFTs and then 1,000 each, right? And then, so this highest tier NFTs were being traded, right? People were willing to pay, value these at $47 million because these 47 million were eligible to share 1.5% of the total supply, which means, right, you divide this by 0.015, which is 1.5%. That gives us $3.13 billion fully diluted valuation that people were speculating on Manta token before it launched, right? So this was my stance on Manta as well for last week. At that price, I thought it was at least fair, 3 billion plus, right? These kind of this price level has held for essentially 3-4 weeks now, throughout this farming period, which means a lot of people see this as higher than $3 billion. They were not willing to sell below 3 billion. Again, that is another point why I am bullish on this. If it gets anything below 2 billion, that's going to be an entry for me. And that is another reason why I haven't sold any of my Manta airdrops, because for all intents and purposes, I could have sold last week by just selling these NFTs, and I would have exited at 3 billion, but that was too cheap for me. So that's why, I see much higher upside on this, and yeah, that's why I have this current trade that I'm watching. Aside from Manta, the number 2 that I will watch is EigenLayer. Again, cannot stress enough. If you are bullish on Celestia, do not miss EigenLayer. This is the biggest competitor, and it could even get much bigger because it has so many other use cases, not just for data availability. And number 3, I would say it's Fuel, because it's a native team from Celestia. So of course they will get all the attention, all the adoption. So those are 3 pieces of alpha I have for you guys if you are bullish on the Celestia, on the modular narrative. Couple things you can do to connect. Number 1, join our Discord for our free VIP program where we have trading, alpha signals, what I'm buying, what I am farming, the airdrops I'm doing, which kind of narratives I'm targeting. For full disclosure, it is Celestia related narrative plays, and also Ethereum comeback, right? Outperformance versus Bitcoin, and Ethereum layer 2s, Ethereum liquid staking for the few months. These are my main focus plays. And you can find all of that just directly in our Discord, right, in the alpha section, right? And then number 2 thing is make sure to follow me on Twitter or X at VirtualBacon0x. For example, I was getting into Ondo this morning, pretty good call so far. So this is where I drop quick alpha before I make them into these live streams. So follow me on Twitter, very important. And that's it. That's the 2 best places for more content. Thank you guys for joining today's live stream. And if you like this, please subscribe and leave a like. And I will see you on the next episode and next live. Cheers. Bye-bye.